Well, welcome back, everyone, to our August 27th meeting of 2024. May I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Engler?
Here.
Councilmember McNamee?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Newman?
Here.
And Mayor Adam?
And I'm here. And we do have a closed session to announce. Ms. Noonan?
Thank you, Mayor Adam. We have three matters tonight under Government Code Section 54956.9A, all for pending litigation. First one is California Department of Housing and Community Development versus Shangri-La Industries. Second one is F. Roberts Construction versus Shangri-La Industries. And the third one is Shasa Warzadeh versus City of Thousand Oaks.
All right, thank you very much. We'll be back at 6 o'clock. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our August 27th meeting of the Thousand Oaks City Council. We did have a closed session. Anything to report, Ms. Noonan?
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you. If you'd all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Your hands over your hearts and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Wow. And I have a special presentation. I'm going to step down to the podium. Good, thank you. Exactly what I wanted. There we are. Thank you. All righty, we have Mr. Clyde Doheny here with us, the past chair of the Community Funding Review Committee. Clyde's appeared before us a number of times, a good friend. And I'm going to be presenting some certificates to you and your members for what you've done with the Community Funding Review Committee. In fact, if you'd like to bring the members up and introduce them, why don't we do that?
Come on up, ladies and sir.
I'll let you have that.
Well, Henry Montalvo, Kate, I'm sorry. Tammy, Kate, Denise, and Jennifer. You can tell I know a lot. They've been working now, I think, well, this was 1 year, so we've given the report for the 1 year. And I believe most of us are on for 3 years at a time. But they did an excellent job in this last year, and Mr. Mayor is here to congratulate.
Thank you, Clyde. Yeah, it's not easy being on this committee because there's a limited amount of money, and we count on you to review the applications, weigh the pros and cons, make sure the distributions are equitable, and you've done a fantastic job because I think we have 4 different programs that you have to administer now, so that's quite a bit since we've consolidated everything under your auspices. So we really appreciate it. It's an important job. And I do have certificates for each of you. Clyde, I've got one for you. Denise, here we are. You're welcome. Tamara, there we go. Kate.
Thank you.
Kyle. I thought that might be you. And Jennifer. There we are. So, again, we really appreciate what you do. It's not an easy job. I can imagine there must be some hard decisions to make about who gets what, but you've done a fantastic job. Why don't we get a picture with the council? Next up, I'm going to call our Economic Development Analyst, Dusty Russell, to the podium, and we're going to talk about a new business here in town. Dusty, there he is. Tell us about this business, if you would, please.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is for the Business Recognition Program, and this program is designed to highlight exceptional Thousand Oaks businesses for special achievements or other unique contributions made to enhancing our economic prosperity, sustainability, resilience, or other activities fostering community enrichment in Thousand Oaks. Tonight, we would like to recognize our newest program award recipient. Nourished with Kindness is a female-owned dietitian nutrition practice providing specialized care to adults, adolescents, and teens grappling with a wide range of eating disorders and body image concerns. Since 2020, Nourished with Kindness has grown into a practice of 9 registered dietitian nutritionists serving over 300 regular clients from our local area and beyond with their high-quality care. Nourished with Kindness is committed to making their care as accessible as possible, working diligently with insurance providers to maximize coverage opportunities, and offering virtual appointments. Moreover, they provide clinical supervision to other care providers who want to learn more about this area of expertise to incorporate into their own care services. They've even started a business coaching program to help others who are interested in starting their own private practices. There's a lot of reasons to honor this business tonight, but Mayor, I'd like to hand it over to you and say a few additional words. And
Thanks, Dusty. Why don't you folks come on up? And we have a young child that's looking for nourishment, I believe, over there.
Looking for entertainment.
Hi, I'm Al. Nice to see you. You know, this is a really interesting business, very unique. You may be the only eating disorder business in the city at this point, which I think there's a real need for that. I mean, we don't want to get stressed out about food.
Yeah.
We want to enjoy eating and get some good nutrition from it. And I think you're going to help make that happen here in town. So let me present to you a certificate of recognition. There we are.
Thank you so much.
To acknowledge your accomplishments. And would you like to get a picture with the city council?
Yeah, that'd be
All right,
wonderful.
very
Thank you so
good. Let's
much.
do that. All righty. Great new business. Welcome to Thousand Oaks. All right. Let us move on to public comments. If you would announce those, please, Ms. McGuire.
This is the time and place for public comments. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. 10 individuals have requested to speak, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Okay, looks we have Lori Camille up first, followed by Eladio Quintero. The second person can come on down and get staged for their speaking appointment. Good
Okay.
evening. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, City Council. My name is Lori Camille. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks, and I'm here to talk about the Campus Master Plan and tree removals. The Campus Master Plan is advertised as a community-driven vision to create a downtown Thousand Oaks. In a recorded City Council meeting on November 14th, 2023, available on Tokes.org, Deputy City Manager Akbar Ali Khan introduces the master plan as a very public and very community-based exercise from the beginning. He then reviews the results of public feedback survey, which rated 5 core elements of this project: town square with flexible event spaces, tree preservation, relaxing beneath the oaks, Main Street, Grand Stair, and refresh Civic Arts Plaza buildings. It might surprise you to find out that the most popular core development element was tree preservation, with 188 likes. Second was Town Square, with 117 likes, meaning tree preservation was highest by a landslide of 71 more likes. Not included in this meeting, but available online in the Campus Master Plan document, Appendix A, is another survey asking the public what kind of features they would like to see. Again, at number one, with 72.53% of the votes, is landscaping and large trees. Despite this feedback from surveys, trees have already been removed, including valley oaks that are hundreds of years old. So here are my questions in regards to the recent removals and Campus Master Plan. The oaks that were removed behind Lassen's were over a large mulchy area with no pedestrian access, no sidewalk. How are these a hazard? Why were these removed? Couldn't any of them be fenced off? Was everything done to preserve them? Is the city going to follow through on the promise of the Campus Master Plan being a community project and implement the feedback that has made clear tree preservation is very important to the community? And finally, in another survey, less than 50% even strongly agree with the downtown development. Has the city considered that maybe this isn't the right time and there's other priorities such as affordable housing and affordable property insurance? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Eladio Quintero, followed by Robert Ayers. Hello.
Hi, I'll be translating from Spanish to
Oh, very good, very good.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Eladio Quintero.
Good afternoon, my name is Eladio Quintero.
Esto es para el city manager y para todos los concejales que hacen las leyes en Thousand Oaks.
This is for the city manager and for all of the councilors who follow the laws of Thousand Oaks. So Thousand Oaks is the city we're talking to.
Oh my God, the last thing. Está en inglés. Ok, yo vengo a hablar de las trailers de comida. Nos dan licencias, pero nos ponen restricciones que nos afectan.
I'm here to talk about the mobile food trucks here in the city and how we get permits and licenses, but we have restrictions that affect us.
Quieren que trabajemos 4 horas en un lugar. Ok, quieren que trabajemos 4 horas en un lugar y que nos muevamos. ¿Cuántos pies nos tenemos que mover?
The city wants us to work only 4 hours in one location and then have us move. Our question is, how many feet do we have to move from that location?
¿Y por qué un carro regular puede estar parqueado todo el día y una traila de comida no?
And why is it that a regular car could be parked all day on a public sidewalk, but a food truck cannot?
Una pregunta, ¿ustedes trabajan 4 horas en un lugar y se mueven a otro lugar para hacer sus 8 horas de trabajo?
I have a question for you. Do all of you work only 4 hours and then move to a different location to work the remaining 4 hours to complete your 8 hours of work?
¿O nomás trabajan 4 horas? Porque 4 horas, nadie puede vivir con 4 horas de trabajo.
Or do you guys only work 4 hours? Because I don't think anyone can live from working 4 hours of work.
Las trailas de comida tienen el mismo equipo que un restaurante.
Our mobile food trucks have the same equipment that restaurants have.
Y también nos inspeccionan como un restaurante.
And we also have all of the proper inspections from the health department, just like a restaurant.
Y también pagamos renta donde las guardamos porque tiene que ser un lugar aprobado por salubridad.
And at the end of the night, we store our food trucks at a place where we pay rent according to the health department that we get to wash everything in.
Ya que con los clientes, hacemos 2 o 3 horas limpiando y lavando y limpiando todo el equipo diario.
At the end of our shift, we do take our food trucks back to the commissary and spend 2 to 3 hours washing all of our equipment.
Porque yo sé que ustedes siempre están haciendo leyes,
We know that you guys are always creating new laws,
pero en esta les pedimos que sean más flexibles y que nos dejen trabajar más horas.
and with this law, we ask that you guys would be more flexible with us and allow us to work more hours.
Esto de las trailers de comida es una tradición hispana. Déjenos seguirla conservando, claro, con todos con sus permisos y reglas. Muchas gracias.
This with the food trucks is one of our traditions we have as Hispanics, and we want to continue that tradition. And we want to have clear permits, permission, and orders from you so that the codes that we follow are correct. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Robert Ayers, followed by Bonnie Clarfield Byland.
My name is Bob Ayers. I live in Thousand Oaks. I've been here before. I want to start off by saying the TO Police Department has been tremendous. Everyone I've met on the police department has been a wonderful person. Code enforcement, the same way. I happen to live across the street, you've heard me here before, at a drug house. I live across the street. I get a glass of water, I see drug activity. I cook food, I see drug activity. My grandchildren are not allowed to visit me because of the people who are across the street. The owners of the house are both in prison. The female is in LA County jails, the male is in Ventura County jails. This is your fault. You can come up with some sort of idea that removes these people. The amount of money that this house has caused this place, it's been 3.5 years, will be 4 December 9th. Neighbors are fearful. There's a neighborhood watch where everybody kind of says what's going on with the house. They have no garbage service, so all of their garbage is piled up out back. These people live like rats. They don't come out in the daylight. They come out at night. They wake neighbors up 2 to 4 in the morning. The other night, at 2 in the morning, a car pulls up that had never been there before. A woman gets out with another woman and takes 3 sets of golf clubs into the backyard. 2 in the morning. This is every single night. It's costing the city a fortune. And if you guys are going to continue to allow these kind of houses to exist in this town will fail. I'm out of here, and I'm disgusted. I really am. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Ayers. Bonnie Clarfield Byland, followed by Janet Wall.
Oops. Good evening. My name is Bonnie Clarfield Byland, and I chose to reside in Thousand Oaks because of its ring of green and commitment to our urban forest. It would be wonderful if today's city of Thousand Oaks embraced the conservation vision of our founding community leaders, including at this city campus where so many of our valuable large senior oak trees live. I am disquieted about the recent handling of the removal of 6 heritage oaks from this campus. Per the Municipal Code, Article 42, Oak Tree Preservation and Protection, by definition, hazardous oak tree shall mean any oak tree determined to be dangerous to life or property as determined by an authorized agent of the city. When something is dangerous to life or property, shouldn't public safety measures be taken immediately? I'm asking this because the city took no action for 4.5 months to secure the at-risk areas around any of the 6 oaks labeled as hazardous. Here's the timeline per city documents. 2023, city staff was concerned about unhealthy trees. January, a third-party arborist assessment was done for 29 trees. On March 21st, July 25th, and August 5th, full removal of those trees was decided and documents signed. And on August 12th, a press release was posted, and trees were already being cut down from August 12th to August 15th. Verbatim from the press release, it was determined that these trees could experience immediate failure. Yet, the city's inaction to immediately take public safety measures after March 21st either demonstrated no exigent danger from these trees and/or incompetence. This was either a comedy of errors or a premeditated intent to remove these oaks. Calling the trees hazardous enabled an exemption to the permitting process. By skipping Planning Commission, full transparency and public notification was absent. 4 of the trees had 2 mitigation options besides removal in the arborist's report. Was it the city's intention to eliminate public input because they knew residents would be riled up and want to save these oak trees? Was the hazardous tree labels honest, or were they given because the said hazardous oak trees were growing in inconvenient places? Also, why are there no replacement oaks being planted at this campus when there's space? Is it possible that due to the proposed expansion plan at the City Hall campus, several of these huge oak trees are in the path of development and are being removed to make way for the new city vision for this location? For 2 decades, the City of Thousand Oaks has been designated as Tree City USA. Thank you. However, Thousand Oaks can do better, caring for and saving our old heritage oak trees. 4 of the chopped down trees had an alternate mitigation option to retain in place with canopy reduction and fencing. The city's risk management...
Thank you very much. Thank
Okay.
you. Janet Wall, followed by James Dean.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name is Janet Wall, representing Conejo Oak Tree Advocates. For those who don't know me, I served on the Planning Commission from 2003 until 2007. I chaired the city's ad hoc oak tree committee and helped retire the owner-planted oak tree exemption at the February 19th, 2015 City Council hearing. Also in 2015, a group of us who have a special affinity for our historic oak trees formed CODA. Longtime residents Ed Lawrence and Marilyn Carpenter, who you're honoring tonight, were an integral part of CODA, and the wisdom helped our efforts. We were and are people who speak for protecting these special trees. We recognize that many of you may not hold the same passionate regard and respect for our historical trees that we do. When city leaders allowed 6 giant oaks to be destroyed a week ago without any notice to the public, without allowing your planning commission to study the report and ask the master arborist questions about her conclusions, you showed the community that transparency is not part of your mission. Trees that can wait over 7 months to be removed are not imminently hazardous. They were perhaps no more hazardous than any other large tree had the arborist's option to prune, lighten, and fence the 6 oaks occurred instead. I hope you realize the methods used to accomplish the oak removals were a great disservice to the community, but also to the historic living entities that graced our land for several centuries and which the ordinance supposedly protects. Our heritage oak trees deserve to be recognized as valuable assets, especially when they are on public land. Going forward, I've exchanged emails with David Chavez, and he shared the number of oak trees and varieties the city is planting. It's encouraging news, and hopefully he will ensure more valley oaks are planted. There has been a century-long continued loss of valley oaks due to decades of oak tree removal permits and drought. Native endemic trees are an important part of our local environment and host numerous wildlife species. That's important to some of us. In addition, I would encourage you to be more forthcoming in the future, especially when drawings are published in the newspaper that depict a future playground where one of our historic oaks was removed. if these drawings portray what City Council intends for this patch of land, will any majestic oak trees remain?
Thank you very much. James Dean, followed by Jesus Martinez.
Good evening, James Dean, a landscape architect, and I'm noted for oak trees. I'd like you not to hold the timer off for a second because I have a very important announcement for the community. And you have in your packet a picture of an oak tree, if you'd take a look at it. This tree we've discovered, I've been working in these trees for 55 years in Thousand Oaks. I've walked probably every inch of this city, and I've found this large oak tree, and it's 1,000 years old. I thought it's important that you know this. And so we have a 1,000-year-old oak in Thousand Oaks, okay? Now, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to pass this around so people can see it. And by the way, Chuck Cohen, put your hand up. Chuck is was the first councilman in Thousand Oaks, and he was the author of the Oak Tree Ordinance in 1972. I didn't plan this, but he just happened to be here tonight. Okay, I'd like to say a few things. There's a lot of things. By the way, I have the beginning of dementia, so forgive me. There's been a lot of things that have happened in Thousand Oaks that have been very, very important. And I've also given you a copy of the Ben Johnson Oak Tree study that was done in North Ranch, a very famous document, scientific study. It was so important it was the first time that was ever done on that type of oak tree or that type of tree, the study. And when I went to the symposium, all those are published here. It all happened in Thousand Oaks. When I went to the symposium in Claremont, I was shocked because two of the most well-known, famous people in oak trees or trees, arborists, Dr. Shigo, everybody knows Dr. Shigo, who's in the industry, and Dr. Richard Harris approached me, and I thought they were going to criticize our work. Turned out that they wanted to hear about it, and it had never been done before, so I got the attention of the best people in the industry. I had a lot of notes, but I'm not going to go too much through them. I think one of the things that's really important working with oak trees, and by the way, Lee Newman and I preserved 10,000 oak trees in North Ranch. 10,000 oak trees in North Ranch in 1974. People are saying we got 99 oaks in Thousand Oaks. I guarantee you there's over 15,000. So.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Next up, Jesus Martinez, followed by Dana Stangl.
I'll be translating again from
Very
Spanish
good.
to English.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good evening, everybody.
Mi nombre es Jesús Martínez.
My name is Jesus Martinez.
Vengo a expresar ante ustedes mis pensamientos de las trailas de tacos.
This is for the city of Thousand Oaks. I'm here to express myself about the mobile food trucks, the taco trucks here in the city.
Ya que el código de la ciudad solo nos permite trabajar 4 horas en el mismo lugar,
Now this city allows us only to work 4 hours in one location at a time, according to the codes.
y estamos agarrando situaciones como esta
And we're getting into situations like this,
por el Departamento de Códigos de la Ciudad,
according to the codes by this city.
que hasta el momento no he podido pagar esta situación,
And at this point, we haven't been able to come up with a solution.
ya que con 4 horas de trabajo no alcanzo a cubrir todos los gastos.
With only 4 hours of working our food trucks, we're not able to cover our cost.
Ya que como todo negocio de la ciudad,
Just like every other business in the city,
pagamos impuestos y pagamos todo lo que requiere la ciudad.
we pay for our taxes, we pay for our licenses and anything that the city asks us to pay for.
Y les pedimos que nos sean más flexibles para trabajar en esta hermosa ciudad.
And we just ask that you guys would be a little bit more flexible with us because we love working in this beautiful city.
Y además, comer en una traila de tacos es delicioso.
And you guys should come try our tacos because they are delicious.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dana Stangl, followed by Gary Hartung.
I'm Dana Stangl from Newbury Park. I'm new to the area, and I'm here tonight on behalf of 6 Oaks. One of the reasons we moved here was because of the open space and the trees. And it's a tree city. It has all these beautiful oaks. In fact, I am the proud steward of 2 Coast Live oaks. When I learned of the oaks coming down without advance warning to the public, without having tried other mitigation efforts or even having marked the area around them as dangerous, when they were clearly so dangerous they needed to be removed without due process, I'm sort of floored. I am a past president of my own neighborhood council where I come from, and this lack of transparency wouldn't have been allowed there. And then I wonder, is this what I moved into? Did we stop making the Oaks a priority at some point? Is there something more I can do? One thing I can do is finish what Bonnie was saying, which was that on March 21st, the city's risk management officer made the decision to fully remove all 6 Oaks, which led to a 0 risk hazard level. Will this set a precedent of future death sentences for all of our large senior Oaks if the mitigation goal is always for a 0 risk level? To some degree, all large trees will always have an elevated level of hazard risk. We are the city of Thousand Oaks. Lastly, tonight we will be recognizing Marilyn Carpenter, a former COTA member who recently passed. The city can truly honor her memory by preserving the heritage oak trees she loved and spent years protecting as a resident and city leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gary Hartung, followed by Dan Tweed.
I am interested in attending just the one presentation by Pete McBride and Kevin Fedarko at 7:30 p.m. February 11th, 2025 at the Cavalier Theater. Their presentation is one of 6 in the Distinguished Speaker Series. I logged on to www.speakersla.com to pay for 1 seat in row GG of the mezzanine section. I was told that I must pay for 1 seat, I was told that I must pay for all 6 presentations, which would cost about $509 to sit in 1 seat in row GG of the mezzanine section. I received an email from Nikki at the Arts Council about this, and she said that for about 20 years, this company has a contract that allows them to charge people for all 6 presentations, even though they only want to attend 3, 2, or in my case, 1. In my case, 1 seat is 1/6 of $509 is only $84. This company's policy of forcing people to pay for all 6 presentations when people only want to attend 1, 2, or 3 is outrageously unethical. They should be told ASAP that they will immediately allow residents of this community to buy tickets for 1 presentation at 1/6 of the price for the series, and in relation to the location of their seat. If this company and any company that refuses to allow people who only want to attend 1 presentation to pay for only one presentation in this series, they should be told that their contract with the Bank of America Performing Arts Center will not be renewed. I have a copy here that I want to leave with the City Council. I expect you to read it. I want a response either to my email address or a letter from the city. Who do I give it this to? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope so.
Dan Tweed, coming to us remotely.
Yes, very good Tuesday evening to the council members and the city. Dan Tweed here, going to be on your ballot November 5th for a fourth try at the newly districted council seats. But what I want to let people know about tonight is a very interesting expo coming up at the campus of the Cal State Channel Islands University. That's the newly created, I think, newest member in the Cal State chain. It's this Saturday, August 31st. I've got the QR code up there. If you want to scan that, it'll take you to the website that has more information. But I just want to say that amateur radio is, I think, going to be playing a bigger part in more governance and less government, let's say. You can do a lot of governance without the monopoly on force that governments represent. And I think the districting the city into smaller units is a good thing. But anyway, that's going to be a great event. Lots of other ham clubs will be coming out there. I told the folks on the board net, which is that's a BORED, the auxiliary board net, and they have a nice meeting on the local repeater here every Monday through Saturday at 9 a.m. You can check in there if you're a new ham or an old ham. But yeah, there's going to be a workshop on building antennas out of measuring tape. Everyone probably has broken measuring tape. Well, you can use that to make a neat little, what's called a Yagi antenna, named after the Japanese inventor. So that's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and it's free, except for if you want to build the antenna. I think that's going to be like a fee for that. And then if you want to get your license, here's a couple of options. One is an in-person option by the local ham club, CVARC, Conejo Valley Amateur Radio Club. And the other one is a remote Zoom option by the National Electronics Museum. So those are the QR codes for that. I hope those are scannable. The in-person class will be at the Sheriff's Station on Olson Road.
Okay,
and start September 5th. The Zoom classes start a couple days later on September 7th. And it's just the world's greatest hobby. And I think it's, as Bucky Fuller said, there are no passengers on Spaceship Earth, we're all crew. And I think if we're going to step up to our crew roles, that this amateur radio hobby is going to be a great way to do it. So I think that's about my time, and thanks again.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. We have Joan Edwards.
Mayor and fellow council members, hello, thank you. My name is Joan Edwards. I live in Westlake Village, which is the Thousand Oaks portion of Westlake Village. Anyway, I think this campus, Civic Arts Plaza, has so many beautiful, beautiful oak trees, and to read that they were going to cut down 6 of them, and then to read that the very day they got the approval to cut them down, they were already cut down. That just sounds so ridiculous to me. And if they were really that dangerous, they should have had something around them and under their drip lines months before they were actually cut down. I was so sorry to hear that they were cut down. And I hope that when you do the remodeling of this, you do a little bit better job of letting the people know and the planning commission know when you plan to cut the trees down, because to cut them down and then tell people that, oh, yeah, we got approval that day, it's just ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that does conclude public comments. So let us go to our city manager, Mr. Powers, for any response.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Adam. As the city council is well aware, the property at Calle Pimiento has been awash with challenges for several years. Mr. Ayers, who spoke this evening, we're in regular contact with him and other neighbors. As you heard, we're actively involved in addressing the issues out there. And as you mentioned, both primary folks that were causing issues are incarcerated at this point. We are going to continue to do all we can to address the issues as they arise, and there are quite a few of them, and we're engaged at that house on a weekly basis. As it relates to the question on the speaker series, as you may know, we are primarily a rental venue, and a Distinguished Speaker Series is produced by a company that has rented our venue, and those renters are able to establish their ticket and subscription terms. So they require purchase of the full series. We have received some complaints regarding food trucks, and we're working to balance the ordinance requirements and the business interest of those operating the trucks. And I'm going to have Mr. Kelvin Parker and Ms. Melissa Hurtado step out and chat with folks, with our two operators, just to get a little bit more information and make sure we have their contact info as well. Relating the trees, we cherish oak trees in this community. Unfortunately, we had 6 very unhealthy trees that had to be removed. They were scanned using advanced technology, reviewed by 3 arborists. We're all sad that they had to come down. We do have our city arborist here, and for any speakers looking to talk at greater length on the topic, I encourage you to step into the lobby, and they'll be there to chat or answer any questions. As the speaker mentioned, we are probably the largest annual planter of oaks in this community, something that we remain very committed to. In fact, we're looking to plant some oaks in the median along Thousand Oaks Boulevard early next year, which I think we're all excited about. We've spent a long time since we've been able to look at planting, having the right width of median in order to plant some oaks. Won't go into the depth on the campus plan, but I can only say that great care is being taken to preserve and enhance our heritage oaks. We're actually trying to build around them so that people will be able to more directly and closely interact with those trees. And with that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Powers. On to the consent calendar. Anything to pull? Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could pull item B, the minutes, please.
Which one?
Item B, the minutes.
Okay. We will do that. And then we do have 2 speakers that we'd like to have up. First is Faith Grant. She will be coming to us remotely. Faith, go right ahead.
Good evening, council members. My name is Faith Grant, and I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks and a representative of Conejo Climate Coalition. My comments are on item I, purchase of 2 electric vans for Dial-A-Ride program. We praise the city for taking this step and encourage more of the city fleet and buses to be converted as rapidly as possible. There are at least 2 benefits of going electric. One, with 62% of Thousand Oaks carbon pollution generated from transportation, this purchase reduces emissions, contributing to the warming of our Earth and subsequent severe weather patterns. And 2, financially, the city can reduce or avoid the increase in fuel consumption and cost as referenced in consent item H, compressed natural gas purchases. As of 2017, 3% of the city's fleet was hybrid. I hope it has increased since that data was made available. So please continue to transition to an electric fleet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kat Selm is up next.
Ms. Selm is not on right now.
All right. Then if a motion for the balance of the consent calendar, Mr. Engler?
Yes, so moved to balance.
All right, let's vote on that, please.
Mr. Taylor, is your vote? Okay, what is your vote, please? Thank you. And that motion passes 5-0.
All right, and Mr. Newman?
Thank you, Mayor. I need to recuse on the minutes since I was absent at the July 2nd meeting, so I will go ahead and move and vote to abstain on that.
All right, so you're voting to abstain on this particular item?
Yes, and
All right.
I'm moving that council accept the minutes, but I will need to abstain since I was not here.
Okay, so we'll need a motion on that item then. And you just made it?
Yes.
I'm getting there, don't worry. Motion on the floor.
And that motion passes 4-0 with Mayor Pro Tem Newman abstaining.
All right, very good, thank you. And this evening, we have a department report. And it is brought to us by our senior planner, Scott Kolwitz. Good evening, Scott. And why don't you begin? And we will listen.
Okay, just give me a moment as I pull up the PowerPoint here. Thank you for having me tonight. Okay, so good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the public. Tonight, we're here to talk about a request to adopt a resolution to initiate a general plan amendment and specific plan amendment to Specific Plan 13. That specific plan was formerly called the Academy Business Park Specific Plan, but was previously referred to as the Seventh-day Adventist Newberry Park Specific Plan. This is the first general plan amendment request the city has received since adoption of the 2045 general plan last December. And that was the first comprehensive general plan the city has adopted since the 1970s. The applicant's request for this general plan amendment and specific plan amendment is to allow residential development instead of industrial development as anticipated by the 2045 general plan, and a retirement center, school, and institutional facilities, and some open space as anticipated by Specific Plan 13. Additionally, the request is to authorize concurrent processing of legislative actions and project entitlements. The project location is here on the screen. Generally, it's north of Academy, the terminus of Academy Drive, north of Hillcrest Drive, and is generally referred to as SDA North. The site is currently undeveloped except for the Conejo Valley Flyers facility. Specific Plan 13, as originally adopted and subsequently amended, was designed to implement policies in alignment with the intent of the city's general plan as it had existed at the time of adoptions, and to establish regulations for specific geographic region. The specific plan includes custom development and design standards, permitted land uses, infrastructure requirements, implementation measures, and other criteria. Specifically, in 1996, Specific Plan 13 was approved to establish a long-range master plan for a 458-acre area, outlined here in red on the screen. Specific Plan 13 anticipated the development of a new high school, elementary school, preschool, retirement center, 84 units of staff housing, a church, approximately 750,000 square feet of retail development, approximately 35,000 square feet of industrial development, and the preservation of 259 acres of open space. In 2006, the first amendment to Specific Plan 13 was approved, and that changed the location of the elementary school, the fire station, the types of retail allowed, revise a road and trail alignments, and to update various standards associated with those actions. And subsequent to that, in 2011, the second amendment came through, which further revised some road alignments, deleted the requirement for a fire station to be built on site, and to allow in lieu fees to be paid to the fire protection district instead of the fire station, and to update various development standards associated with those actions. So So what's proposed is a general plan amendment which would, within the northerly 80 acres of specific plan 13, and the proposed general plan amendment would modify the land use designation in the general plan to change approximately 33 acres from industrial low to neighborhood high, and reconfigure the parks, golf courses, and open space boundaries. So collectively, the remaining approximately 47 acres would be reconfigured as open space. And the picture on the bottom on the left is the existing configuration, and on the right is the proposed configuration. In addition, the third amendment to the specific plan is proposed, and that would modify the zoning to reduce the amount of open space from approximately 54 acres to approximately 47 acres. That's a net decrease of 7 acres. And to then change those 7 acres of open space, as well as the existing 26 acres of public, quasi-public, institutional, and facilities lands, totaling 33 acres, to RPD, residential plan development zoning. And on the left is the existing configuration of the specific plan, and on the right is what is being proposed. The application represents a change in land use policies, and the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code requires such a change in policies to be initiated by the policymakers before staff engages in a study and processing of the policy changes. So that's why we're here tonight. The 2045 general plan was crafted over multiple years with very heavy public engagement. In 2021, City Council considered preferences for land use designations citywide as part of the general plan update process. And the City Council heard a request to change the land use designation on this property to residential, both in its initial preferred land use designation in 2021 and the adoption of the final land use map as part of the general plan update on December 5th, 2023. City Council declined to change the designation for this property to residential. The 2045 general plan's vision identified priority areas along the 101 corridor, which is shown in this graphic on the right in pink. And that area was intended to create a diversity of housing types and affordability levels, including mixed use and multifamily development. If initiated, a proposed residential concept would be reviewed for consistency with all the general plans and specific Plan 13 standards and policies. Staff would take a holistic view, or holistic approach to consider if change to the land use map would result in changes to the other elements of the general plan, including the vision and guiding principles, the mobility element, parks and open space element, the safety element, and the rest of the elements in the general plan. For purposes of this initiation report, staff has conducted a cursory review of the concept for consistency with the 2045 general plan. Staff found that amending the land use element to change approximately 33 acres from industrial low to neighborhood high would result in a consequential change from the vision of the 2045 general plan. Additionally, citing residential uses would be inconsistent with one safety element policy, S-5.19, entitled Citing New Development. And that language says, prioritize all new residential development to be built outside the very high fire hazard severity zone. In the image on the right is the location of where the proposed development would occur. So the request before you this evening would be the beginning of this process. If initiated, the applicant would file a formal project application, and city staff would conduct a thorough review of the concurrent project and the 2045 general plan and the specific Plan 13's standards and policies. Citywide policies would be reviewed, and environmental impacts for this challenging property would be reviewed. Areas of study would include, but would not be limited to, items such as access, circulation, roads, multimodal transportation, emergency response, utilities and infrastructure. fiscal impacts to serve future uses, community benefits that would serve the public as a result from the change, biological resources, grading, wildfire, and Measure E and Measure W, also known as SOAR, their applicability and procedures associated with those. The need for other general plan amendments and/or specific plan amendments may be discovered during staff's holistic evaluation of the proposed amendments, which would ultimately be presented to the Planning Commission and then the City Council. Additionally, required environmental documents would be prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act as part of the formal project permit processing. Conversely, if the initiation is denied, staff would return any unspent filing fees and no further actions would be taken on this action or this application. So staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution tonight to find that this action is not a project as defined under the California Environmental Quality Act, and to either initiate or deny the initiation of a requested general plan amendment, specific Plan 13 amendment, and authorization for concurrent processing of legislative actions and project entitlements. So with that, that concludes my report, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kolwitz. Any questions for staff? Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Kolwitz, for your presentation. A few points on the staff report. You touched on fire hazard mitigations. My question on that is whether I understand the chart correctly. Is this site in whole or in part a, quote, very high, in a very high fire hazard severity zone?
Councilmember Newman, thank you. The entirety of this project site is in the very high fire hazard severity zone. That is on the screen for your benefit, and we've superimposed the project in the exact location.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Moving on to the Measure E and W impacts that you touched on and are also mentioned in the staff report. I believe, as a preliminary, the question before us tonight is whether to initiate a study about possibly changing a land use designation. There's not a specific proposal before us tonight, correct?
That is correct.
Right, but walking through that, I realize this is a hypothetical question, and if you can answer, please say so. But my question is, if we were to proceed with initiating this study and changing the land use designation, would that new land use designation allow either of the following two things? Number one, an increase in net housing capacity in the city above what is stated in the current general plan update, the general plan we just recently adopted. And number two, would it also result in a net reduction in the amount of open space in the city?
So Councilmember Newman, staff has not gone through the evaluation to see what holistic changes would happen at this point in time. Those items would be evaluated as part of a formal application, is ultimately where we would move if initiated tonight.
I'm trying to square that second part of that statement with the assertion in the staff report on open space, let's say, that there would be a net reduction of 7 acres.
So that request is essentially to modify the open space in the specific plan to be consistent with the general plan. So it's a general plan consistency item is why that's partially being requested at this point in time. But the impacts of that have not been evaluated by staff at this point in time. That would be part of a formal application.
Fair enough, but it is the case that a change in that the current land use designation does not allow either a net increase in housing capacity or a reduction in open space, correct? Under the current land use designation, The city is not allowed to say, yeah, go ahead, reduce some open space or add more housing units on that space. That's my reading of the current land use designation. Isn't that the case?
If I can just interrupt, the current land use designation is industrial. It's not
Yeah.
residential.
Right.
It has
So-
nothing to do with residential
So,
development. It's
so
not a- it's-
therefore,
It's not a
no
prohibition.
housing units could be added given the current land use designation, correct?
The only way you can put housing on that property is if you initiate a general plan amendment and specific plan amendment to consider housing, process a project, go through the iterations of a project, come back to the planning commission for recommendation, go to the city council for consideration, and then the city council would consider it.
Right.
It's the only way that happens.
The only way is
But we're at
this
square
long-
one. We're at square
before
one.
that,
Do you even
but-
want
but
to
under the
initiate it?
current, just so we're clear, under the current land use designation, neither of two things can happen. Neither housing units can be added. The current designation doesn't allow it. It's
Housing cannot be
industrial.
built. I'm not sure
Right.
what you mean by added. Housing cannot be built on that land.
Right. So therefore, there are no units added because they can't be built in the first place. And open space cannot be subtracted because, again, it is an industrial, it has an industrial designation.
It's industrial, and that's it.
And that's it.
That's
Right.
it.
Okay.
And the only thing before you tonight is whether you want to consider allowing a project to move forward to consider changing it. That's the only thing before you tonight.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Noonan. My final question is on fiscal impacts. Typically, when there are development proposals, the bulk of that cost is borne by an applicant. Are there significant fiscal impacts with public expenditures of public monies involved before that? Were we to proceed with this study, would there be a cost in public money to even to study what a land use designation change would involve?
So that, again, would be part of the formal processing of an application. Things that might be considered in that would be, for instance, if you changed the land use designation, what type of taxes might change in the city? What sort of ripple effects might there be that might come if there are residential uses in lieu of industrial development? So it's those sort of impacts and the cost relative to services for those land uses that we may look at as part of an application.
And I think what Mayor Pro Tem was getting at was expenditures to move through the process, right? And any of those would be borne by a fee associated with that development consideration. So those fees would be paid by the applicant, seem commensurate with the type of application that we move forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Taylor?
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. One is regarding the very high fire hazard zone. Fire insurance is a kind of a big deal right now for a lot of our residents. My question is, how many other areas in our community sit inside of the same very high fire hazard zone? Are there any?
There are a lot of areas that sit inside the same zone. I don't have the acreage for that, but it's a considerable portion of the city.
And if I may speak to that, I mean, the best way to look at it, right, is those severe high fire hazard zones have evolved over time. And so you have a lot of existing neighborhoods that weren't in those zones at one point, and as the maps have been revised over time, they have been added. And that's what's really driven a lot of impact on the insurance rates. Difference in this case is you don't have any current housing there, right? When a lot of those were proposed, they were not in those.
Okay, so my follow-up, this isn't the second question, but follow-up to that is, do we have any new residential being built in the very high fire hazard zones? Or do we designate any land to be zoned either mixed use or residential in those?
I cannot answer that with absolute certainty at this point in time. There's nothing that's being constructed I'm aware of that's currently in those particular zones.
Okay.
As it relates to your land use designation changes, most of those were centered along the 101 corridor. Those areas fall outside of that primarily because they're not in the hillside areas.
Okay. My second question, and I get that this has been tough timing as far as an ideal moment to build real estate. But as far as us updating the general plan, have we seen any new applications come in to build new real estate on the new kind of land designation that we provided in that update?
We have not received any new applications for construction in those areas.
Those are my only two questions. Thank you.
Mr. Engler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of questions. That is a high fire zone, and we just had a fire burn there a couple of years, well, 5 years ago now, I guess it was, a Hill Canyon fire burned through that area. So yeah, it is subject to fire out there. My question is, though, in terms of that topography, as I remember it, is pretty steep. What percentage of that is even buildable, given our hillside ordinance? And also, are there any other mitigating things that you know of? I know we haven't gone through the whole CEQA on it, but are there plants, animals out there that would be affected that we need to be concerned with?
So, Councilmember, I'm going to defer back to the existing specific plan exhibit that has already been previously approved. So on the screen on the left side, it shows the the pads that had been approved in specific plan 13 amendment 2 for where development could occur. So presumably those would be buildable areas. But as part of a formal application, we haven't gone by and reviewed the modified boundaries. We haven't looked at what the grading would be to achieve the revised pads. What we do know about the biology from prior studies is that there is Lion's Panakita and Kineo dudley and other endangered and rare plants that are out there. But again, none of that has been studied as part of this initiation request. If initiated, we would go through that process.
Thank you.
Mr. McNamee.
Mayor, I have 7 questions, but I'll go through 3 if you have the ones you want to ask as well, and then come back to me. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay. When we were developing the general plan, staff came forward with this designation of industrial. I remember the applicant or the owner of the property asked for residential. And I asked the question of staff at the time, could we change it from industrial to residential? And I was assured by staff that yes, you can change it if that was council's will to do so. We're now at that juncture here where the owner is asking for that change in use. If this is changed to residential or down the road as residential, because we're just in the beginning stages of this, do you foresee any impact of other developers coming forward and saying the Me Too, I want to change the general plan designation? Yet we're not compelled, I would think, by council to do so. But is there any possibility of a lot of other developers on the sidelines looking at this saying, change it for Seventh-day Adventists, why don't we change it for our property here too? What are your thoughts?
A lot of those questions end up coming into me. If the question is, are there other property owners that have properties that did not receive a residential designation and are looking to perhaps shift from industrial or some other use? The answer is yes, and that's not uncommon, right? And especially in a macroeconomic environment like this, where maybe you haven't been able to get a tenant or lease your building out. So yeah, there's a handful of them. Off the top of my head, 4 or 5 conversations. Nothing imminent, nothing specific, but those conversations have been had.
Okay. So question 2 is, this is designated as a very high fire zone. Right now, it's industrial. Not real happy that the idea that we have people in a high fire zone and trying to get them out with ingress, egress, and emergency services coming in, fire, police, whatever the case may be. We were okay with industrial being there in a high fire zone, and yet I'm hearing hesitant from staff that we don't necessarily want to put residential in high fire zone. What's the difference? People are people, whether it be people there working during the day and fire comes through versus residential. Tell me what's the thinking of staff regarding the designation between one versus the other.
I'll let Scott speak to it, but just I think what he was pointing out was it was a general plan inconsistency. You have a general plan component within there that talks about residential and high fire hazard, and so whenever when you're considering a general plan amendment, you always point out the general plan inconsistencies if there are any large ones. Is that a right characterization, Scott?
Drew, yes, that's absolutely a right characterization. And the intention behind that policy that's in the 2045 general plan ultimately comes down to the idea of egress. As we put new land uses or just consider land uses, how does egress work from an emergency safety perspective? And the sheer number of people in a residential number is likely to be higher than in an industrial development. So the policy is ultimately asking that question. It's a safety question, among other things, but that's a primary driver.
So if I understand you correctly, the industrial will have fewer people there simply during the workday and they leave at the end of the day, but also fewer people per square acre or whatever you want to call it, as compared to residential, which have more people there. To get them out would be more difficult in a residential situation, correct?
Generally speaking, yes, especially as we're talking higher densities as is requested or being proposed as part of this general plan amendment. That actual analysis, that delta between what's there today and what is being proposed, again, would be part of that evaluation of a formal application, where we'd actually dig into the numbers, see where the roads and the egress would go as we review that with our emergency partners.
So if this is a problem, that would flush out as it moves through the process to say, this isn't working for residential, correct?
We would evaluate it to see first and foremost if it is a problem, what the solutions may be, and then as we go through any formal application, one solution to one problem sometimes reveals another problem to another issue. So that idea of there might be ripple effects on this change would be something that we would certainly study as well if initiated.
So you kind of led into my next question, was regarding the third question here, is feasibility. Right now, we're at the point where we're saying to the applicant, go ahead and take a look at it. We'll, from the city staff side, we'll look at this as well to see if residential will work. No commitment from council, no definite go-ahead on this, but we're just saying that we're going to take a look at this and see if it works at this stage, correct?
Councilmember, I would actually look at this slightly different, and it's a question first and foremost to City Council if we're interested in changing this from, even considering changing this from industrial to residential. And if City Council is interested in exploring that idea, then city staff would be working with the applicant to consider from our different lenses what type of feasibility this might be. And the applicant and the city might come from different angles, but ultimately that is fleshed out as part of a formal application review.
So are we changing the designation right now at this meeting from industrial?
No, the only request that's being made today is the council interested in exploring the concept of changing this from industrial, which it is today, to potentially residential, but there is no decision-making before the council tonight to actually make that change. It's simply potentially allowing an application to come forward.
Okay, so this is a dating phase, not I'm getting married phase then, correct?
Yes, I would go along with that.
Okay. Mayor, I've got a few more, but if you want to go with your questions, I can hold until you come back to me. What do you want to do, sir?
Well, then why don't we go to the speakers?
Well, let me give me my two questions because the speakers may actually want to comment on what I'm bringing forward. What are your thoughts?
Oh, you have two more questions?
Yeah, that's it.
I'll allow it.
Okay. Measure E. Is it worth to the applicant to wait till Measure E expires because we're adding more units and we have a certain number? And some residents are concerned about congestion here in Thousand Oaks getting too populated. Yet other parents are saying, I want to have places for my children to buy a home and be able to live here in Thousand Oaks, so we need more inventory to make available. It's an interesting dynamic here. What's the advantage of waiting until Measure E expires in December of '25?
Councilmember, that in terms of advantage, that's something that I would have to completely defer to the applicant in terms of their thinking. From a staff perspective, we're simply going to evaluate anything based on the formal application, the rules that are in place at that point in time.
Very good. Thank you. Mayor, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as Measure A, I don't believe that would come into play until we actually had a project in front of us. Correct?
That is correct with all citywide policies.
All right, thank you. And we do have some speakers. So let us start with that. Tom Cohen, you're up first. You're not. Charles, AKA Chuck Cohen, is up first.
Chuck Cohen, Thousand Oaks. This is a different kind of matter before the council. This is a staff report in which we're speaking as individuals and not speaking on behalf of a client. But the reality is I'm speaking on behalf of a client. And because of the cogent questions and points that you have already posed, it's really imperative that I indulge in being a representative rather than simply speaking as a member of the public, because a member of the public would not have any knowledge of any of the details that you're speaking about, because there is no project pending. And so if you, in order to get at this in a realistic manner, Mr. Mayor, it is, from my standpoint, it's imperative that I be able to respond to some of the points that you've already raised so that we can put that in perspective, and also to be able to go through the points that I was going to make as an individual citizen. I hope that there's a certain degree of flexibility, and the reason that I think that that's justified is this effort to look at the proper use of this property, which has been undeveloped and vacant, and nobody has proceeded to a development application of any significance. It's always been undeveloped. It's primitive land, pristine, and it was approved for, keep in mind, it was originally approved in specific plan number 13 in 1995. That's 28 years ago, I think. For a school, in fact, for a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school with fields and also with companion housing to be able to house the employees both at the school and in the regional shopping center that's adjacent to it. So if there had been no amendment to the specific plan to date, this would still be zoned for those purposes. And so your questions, how are we going to?
Well, Mr. Cohen,
Mr. Mayor, how are we going to work this?
Why don't we do this? It is a department report, so you already get 3 minutes as a speaker. However, if some of my fellow council members have some questions they'd like to pose to you, perhaps you would be kind enough to answer them and be able to expound a little bit further. And I do see one from Mr. McNamee.
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Fire away, gentlemen.
What's that?
Fire
away. All right.
So as you articulate that this was originally proposed as a specific plan where we would have residential there for the employees of the school there for middle school, high school, and elementary school. So they would already have a population there living in a high fire zone. What's to say, what's the difference here between that what was proposed in 95 versus what we're doing today? And how does that fit in with the same type of model as to what was proposed in 95 for what you're doing here?
Councilman McAfee, I'm not sure I heard you.
Sure. Let me say it again a
apologize.
little bit slower. It's all right.
I'm sorry.
In 95, it was proposed as housing for employees both of the school as well as the local shopping center, elementary school, middle school, high school, fields, so forth out there. So we were going to have people in that area. And what is the difference today versus what we're proposing today versus what was there in 95 with the specific plan that was already approved?
Well, let me preface the answer to that by this. All we're really talking about tonight is not the specifics of what may be proposed for the site if the general plan were to be amended and the specific plan would be amended. What we're talking about tonight is an applicant, is not even an applicant, it's a requester who is looking to see if the council is willing at his cost to do all the processing that would be required to do the general plan study. It's a request for them to work with the city staff and his consultants, which he has a team that's been looking at this property for 4 years now, with the idea of is there a better use for this property which would ultimately be a decision to be made by the council. Tonight, this is so ephemeral. It's hard to. I can tell you, if you choose, I can tell you what we're generally proposing here, but that's not the issue tonight. There would be a significant difference between schools and a track and companion housing to what is being thought of, at least in the future, if the general plan were to be amended to residential.
If I may put it in my words, it sounds like you're just coming forward with an ask for council to greenlight feasibility and possibilities to be discovered and explored from the city staff, paid for by the applicant and their people. We have nothing to lose from our side.
At no cost to the city.
No cost to the city,
Yeah.
but it's looking for feasibility and what could be at this site. Is that correct?
That's correct. And let's look at this kind of from the large standpoint. In 1995, the city was very reluctant to approve housing generally. And so what was really being looked at that time was a regional shopping center, would it be approved or not approved, and a specific plan that included the balance of the Seventh-day Adventist Conference property, all of which is about 458 acres. We're talking about a regional shopping center that was built upon the specific Plan 13, and we're talking about another approximately 248 acres or 250 acres of area over the hill. If you might visualize this property, the shopping center runs from Hillcrest Drive to the base of a hill system there. And we're talking now about the portion of that specific plan that goes over the hill to an extent of about 30 acres. Mr. Councilman Engler asked the question about the terrain and its gradients. The reaction I have is that we're really talking about a pad that has already been looked at from the standpoint of its feasibility to be approved for purposes of a school. I mean, that pad would have been approximately 20 to 30 acres in size to accommodate the original proposal. So that's part of it. If somebody else has another question.
Thank you, Mr.
In fact,
Cohen.
if you go
Mayor?
back through your questions, then I can really respond, because I made notes on what you said, but I'm not permitted by the mayor to
I believe Mr. Engler has a question
volunteer.
for you. Mr. Cohen, Mr. Engler has a question.
The mayor is very strict, I understand. Well, thank you, Mr. Cohen, for coming in and talking today. And I do have a question. In our general plan that we've just adopted, we focused a lot of our emphasis on the 101 corridor. Does this property fit in the 101 corridor, or is it's around the corner? It's quite a, not I wouldn't say quite a distance, but it's probably
Great
three
question,
quarters of a
and
mile
thank
or a
you.
mile.
This project location, that's what we're talking about, is location now, fits very well within the policies of the general plan that were adopted by the council last year, or early this year, I forget exactly. The reason I say that is that it's adjacent to, abutting to a regional shopping center. It is as close to Hillcrest Drive and the freeway corridor as any of the other town center projects that were approved for modification of zoning to allow for mixed use. It's probably closer to that corridor, as an example, to a very deserving project that received your approval or placement on the housing list, and that's the Jan's Marketplace, which is north of Hillcrest Drive, similar to what we're talking about here. So from a location standpoint, it is not out of line by any means with what the policy, with your concept of trying to limit. First of all, I think the concept was to limit any new housing intruding upon existing neighborhoods. Okay. Certainly, the Jan's Marketplace doesn't do that, and certainly the Oaks doesn't do that, and those were deserving and listed properties. This property is surrounded by the shopping center on the south and by open space, open areas all to the west, north, and east. There isn't another housing development that can see this property that's less than 3.5 miles away. So I don't want to elaborate too much on the answer to your question, but that's at least a start on being able to describe that.
That was my question. Do you consider this part of, consistent with our general plan aim of having the 101 corridor be our...
Consistent?
It's consistent with the general plan of having the 101 corridor be where we have higher density housing.
Yes.
Thank you.
You also asked questions about the wildfire and the zoning on that.
Yeah, it's in a wildfire area that has burned off here within the last 10 years easy. So, and I don't want to get specific to whatever you would be coming with us, because right now we just have an idea that your client is bringing forward that he would like this. So I don't want to get too much into specifics or mitigations for all those things that could happen.
But in regard to your, I think this question was raised by Mr. Taylor as well. As to that issue, I would, first of all, nobody has mentioned the fact that in specific Plan 13, this property, if to be developed, was required by condition to build a connecting road between what would be the extension of Wendy Drive to Academy Drive, all the way around the back end to Rancho Caneo Boulevard. That road would enhance the fire department's access and timing to any fire that would take place in that valley that goes to the north and beyond. That in itself would not be a detriment to the project. It would be a benefit to the entire area as a fire suppression addition. So, and also keep in mind, you being a fire chief, this project would have to go through all of the requirements of the fire marshal of Ventura County in the state of California. I submitted earlier a writing to you through City Manager Powers that listed a significant paragraph of all of the things that would have to be done in order to make this property as fire safe as any other in the city. So,
All right. We have to wrap this up. We have a couple more speakers, Mr. Cohen. We have a couple more speakers coming, so I appreciate you entertaining our questions. And I'm going to move on to our next few speakers.
okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
May I just finally state, yes. Well, my final statement is that all that is being requested is for you to allow a property that has been sitting vacant and unused, and a valuable piece of land owned by the church to be considered for development. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Tom Cohen, I have you on as a speaker. Well, we can't do time deferrals, but let us go then to Jackson Piper. He's with us remotely, I believe. Mr. Piper?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Jackson Piper from unincorporated Newbury Park, California, and a member of the Ventura County EMB Housing Activist Group. I have been repeatedly in front of this council and the Planning Commission, as well as many other governing bodies throughout Ventura County over the past several years, advocating for new projects and new proposals for housing development, because it is, and I'll use the term that is kind of becoming overused in this day and age, but it is desperately needed. It is truly desperately needed. We have a shortfall of tens of thousands of units of housing in Ventura County, and especially in terms of affordable units that regular working class people who have not benefited from the gains in the economy as much as some people have. A lot of those people are getting shut out of being residents of Ventura County by the increasing cost of living here. So we definitely need more housing. I absolutely want to see more housing in this city. But that being said, I have some concerns and reservations about what is proposed here today, even though, as Mr. Cohen just said, it is only a proposal to study the possibility of development there. The project, well, the site that would become a project eventually is located on the other side of the hill from the regional shopping center in the 101, and it's basically in what is de facto open space right now. There is the abandoned model airplane airport there, but it is kind of isolated from the surrounding uses, and it is halfway up a hill from basically the floor of Wildwood to the top of the mountain adjacent to the 101. So, and it has, as Councilmember Engler pointed out, burned before. I am quite concerned about the possibility of putting residential uses in that area and having to evacuate people down Academy Drive, or even if there is a connection to Rancho Caneo Boulevard in either direction that way. If we had a gridded street connection that would allow more penetration from the site to be evacuated into surrounding communities so people could get out, that'd be great, but we don't. I'm also concerned about the open space loss. So I must oppose this proposal. I think it just doesn't work.
Thank you, Mr. Piper. Clint Foltz, up next.
Hello, my name is Clint Foltz. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks, and I'm a member of the Caneo Climate Coalition and Ventura County Guests in My Backyard. It is my understanding that adopting this resolution could lead to a reduction in the amount of our open space and affect wild habitat. Based on this, I asked you to adopt a resolution to deny initiation of the amendments. We need housing, but we also need to preserve our open space and to stop building in the wilderness-urban interface in other areas with high wildfire risk. Infill housing is what we need. I'm going to quote from a white paper that was published just a few days ago titled Infill Housing and Land Use as a Tool to Fight Climate Change. Quote, "We are facing the climate crisis. To address it, we should increase the stock of multifamily housing in urban areas. Increasing urban density and adding housing will not only reduce our emissions, but will also allow us to address the cost of living crises in our cities. Infill housing is one of the best tools that cities and counties have to fight climate change. Building compact, walkable, and transit-oriented housing greatly reduces greenhouse gas emissions and prevents the low-density sprawl that destroys wild habitat. Denser multifamily housing is so environmentally effective that UC Berkeley's Cool Climate Network emphatically states that infill housing is probably the single most impactful measure that cities could take to reduce their emissions. Moreover, integrating high-performance design in these infill developments can further reduce both energy consumption and GHG emissions while improving comfort and health outcomes for residents. To address climate change and protect the environment, we must change the way we use land and build housing," end quote. Let's build housing that helps our community members, not housing that puts them in harm's way and reduces our wild habitat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foltz. I believe that's all our speakers. Oh, it's not all our speakers. Tom Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I had a change of heart. Appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. There were a couple points I wanted to bring up after hearing some of the comments. One thing that we didn't get across that I want to get across, as we're assessing the development potential for this property, this site will be able to produce a significant amount of affordable housing. This project is looking at producing upwards of 20% of the total number of units for lower income. That's point number one. Number two, to address the comments we heard from Mr. Foltz and from Mr. Piper, the project is going to have to go through a full environmental impact report study. All these issues are issues to be evaluated and assessed, and it could be that these impacts could be too great. Project may not be able to mitigate them, and this project may be you may be unable to approve the project. That's all to be determined. We're just looking for the opportunity to get this project into the pipeline, to be evaluated, and to be studied. The other piece that I think is important to understand is this project did go through back in 1995, 1996, I think it was, a full environmental impact study for the uses that Mr. Cohen talked about earlier. And so in the area that we're talking about where future development will happen, where this or prior council had determined where development should happen, is where development is being proposed to happen again. I think what you heard about this issue of general plan consistency, I don't think there's going to be a loss of open space. I think the outcome will be that the open space will remain what has always been identified as part of the specific plan. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. I believe that concludes public comments. Staff, any responses you'd like to make?
No.
All right, thank you. Any further questions for staff? If not, I'm going to open it up for council's discussion and/or motion. Mr. McNamee.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things I learned when I went through my engineering training at UCLA was that engineers are very good at asking, what if? How about if we try that? You know, it makes me wonder what would happen if we did this. That opens up all sorts of possibilities, something that government needs to learn about looking outside the box and different creative answers. What I'm hearing is that this applicant is just simply asking for the ability to do a feasibility study to address all those issues such as ingress, egress with fire, other emergencies. Yes, there's loss of open space, but it's one where it's a rather minimal amount. We're looking right now for housing to address the housing shortage here. And if any of this becomes an issue here regarding public safety, so forth, that'll come out in the analysis. The city's not at risk financially because the applicant is going to pay for it. All we're doing here today is just giving them the opportunity to ask that, what if we do this, what happens? What if we do that, what happens? This may wash out at the end saying you can't do it for what they're proposing. And this may wind up being, for example, mixed use, multifamily with industrial. Who knows? Because yes, there are challenges with any property that comes forward here, but I'm not going to say to a developer that, no, this is your property and you can't do it because I don't think so, without a study in front of me to say, we've got an issue here. We can armchair quarterback here, but I'd rather have a study done to do the true analysis to see if this is a problem. It will go through the full review, and at some point along the way, it may get washed out. But I'm okay with doing that because that's asking the what-if question. Is this feasible, is it not? That's all the applicant's asking for. So I'd like to make a motion that we allow for the applicant to move forward with the feasibility study. I'm going to ask and lean on our city attorney. How do you want me to frame that, city attorney, to do that?
Turn your mic on.
Okay, I'm going to, 12, I'm going to say for, there we go.
Yeah. Be adopting a resolution to initiate the study and processing for consideration of a general plan amendment and specific plan.
Excellent.
Basically, 2A and 3.
Excellent. What she said.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Let's discuss it. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to point out, as Chuck Cohens was walking down, there's a gentleman here that started clapping for him. And maybe there's somebody in the audience that doesn't know this, but Chuck, I believe, was actually on the city council when our original general plan was approved. He's also a staple in the community. So if anybody would like to just join me in a round of applause, just thanking him.
Very nice.
Mr. Taylor, he was mayor and signed off on the first general plan, I understand.
Isn't it amazing how it comes full circle? Here we are today talking about the general plan. I appreciate both of you guys. First, as far as the property goes, I see the potential in this property. I mean, it's a beautiful property. It's spectacular in a lot of ways. It has challenges. You know, what piece of property doesn't? It's not saying I don't necessarily think we can get past those challenges. I think the challenge that I'm having with this is more around the general plan. And we just went through the process of updating it and just gave a pathway for where we want to see all of the developers and investors come. And nothing's been built yet. I understand it's a big challenge in the market. I know these things take time. But for me, the thing I am wrestling with is that I want, now that we gave everybody the blueprint, I want that built out. I think one part that's important about it is we spent years building that out with public input and public support. And the fact that we don't have one application yet, I would like to keep the focus on that. That's the biggest challenge I'm having with this. So it's not that I don't recognize that there's an opportunity here. I just want everyone that's looking at investing in our city to know where we want them directed in this. So that's kind of my challenge with this one at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Newman. Oh, all right. Mr. Engler, you've been deferred to.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for the discussion, good discussion tonight. We really don't have a project to look at, and I recognize that. So to be specific about that general location and any potential project that may go there, either industrial or residential. For me, anytime you put residences, you're putting people in harm's way. So if this does go forward, I know that's a concern of my own for anything that's going into a higher fire zone. However, I think I more agree with Mr. Taylor in that our general plan is less than a year old. It's still younger than the baby that was here earlier. It's less than a year old. We have not had any action on it yet. As a council, we carefully looked at that and took the input from the citizens and looked at the 101 corridor is where we would like to see it occur. And by the 101 corridor, in my mind, I'm thinking about places like the mall, the Oaks Mall, or even Jan's Marketplace, which is 2 blocks off of the freeway. I'm thinking the Timber School, which is you can throw a rock to the freeway from there. Don't do that, though. That's my idea of the 101 corridor, not so much an area that's around the backside of a hill. On top of that, not even looking forward to more development, but we have over 2,000 units on the books right now, and there's not a stick in the ground yet. So I for one, am curious at how that impact is going to affect our city. I think it was the right idea. We're on the right track, but we haven't seen the impact of the stuff we've already approved, much less going forward to an area that isn't really on the corridor and isn't really part of what I consider the general plan direction that we had.
Thank you, Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all know, I've been a longtime advocate for more affordable housing here. So on its face, it would seem here's an opportunity where we can add to our stock of affordable housing. So why wouldn't we want to proceed? And the short answer to that is not necessarily a flat no. It is instead that we don't consider housing or anything in a vacuum. We have to do many tests and balance many factors. It's not just housing or fire mitigation, housing or public safety, housing or environmental protection. We need to do all these things together. And so I share some of the policy concerns that my colleagues, Councilmember Engler, Councilmember Taylor, have raised around that. I haven't been involved with land use here quite as long as Mr. Cohen, although I do respect and appreciate his long service. I have been involved in land use. This is my 11th year in dealing with land use policies. And as we all know, we were something like 5 years, give or take, just on the general plan update and had very lengthy discussions on whether to add and where to add density for residential use or mixed use to the general plan. I personally sat through sessions that were 6+ hours in where we decided which areas in town, and as has already been mentioned, those were along the 101 corridor. I certainly voted for both Oaks Mall and Jantz Mall because I think those are good areas for development and they do check all the other boxes. I've also been around a bunch of changes to land use designations in the past, and some of them I voted for, some I voted against, some I agree with, some I didn't. In every single case, two things. One is whether I agreed with it or not, I felt that the next set of steps could have happened. Even if I disagreed with them, the various issues that needed to be worked out, I would have to agree, they could be studied, mitigated, whatever. That in effect, we were saying in good faith, even if it was just a study, we were saying there is a basis to proceed here. And I don't think we can say, given the many concerns we've raised tonight, and it's only some of the concerns, that we would be making a good faith effort if we're saying, go ahead and do this, but even some of the speakers who are advocating for this are saying, well, it may not succeed at the next step. And that brings me to the second point, is you can only cross that street once. I've never seen a case where we have up-designated an area and then reverted it. And so I think this is something within our policy framework we need to approach with much concern and much seriousness, and that's what we did. We have a policy. We identified places where affordable housing could go. I have an additional two concerns. One of them is precedent. Is in addition to the concerns I've just named, others have named, I'm also concerned about follow-on effects were we to proceed even with a study here, which is that if we were to tell everyone else who, as Mr. Powers has said, would like to have some land use designation changed, never mind about that general plan we just spent 5 years on. We'll rip it up and we'll do whatever you want. One, I wonder what we just spent the past 5 years for. And two, I wonder what message that sends to the people we work for, the residents. What does it say? Does it say we prioritize directives from developers or from the states over our own residents when the general plan itself says, no, we will protect the residents here? So I'm very concerned about the precedent this would set. And then finally, we are also working in the context of an unprecedented number of direction from the state and even the federal government when it comes to what we must do. We now work under more outside constraints than we ever have in our history. And I think, as Councilmember Engler has pointed out in previous occasions, when we have a policy and don't enforce it, don't stick to it, it's a problem. And similarly, where we have the ability to exercise local control, and our general plan, even though I opposed parts of it, I supported most of it because it is a very strong exercise in local control. I think it's important for us to exercise that and not cede this council's ability to make land use decisions and to stick by them. So for all those reasons, Mr. Mayor, I would oppose the study proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Yeah, actually, we've heard this issue twice before, in 2021 during the preferred land use designation, and then, of course, in 2023 with the general plan update, and both times the council declined to change it from light industrial. Our general plan is less than a year old. Took us 4 years to culminate in this document, and with a huge amount of public input, and I have to say I'm a little reticent at this early stages of implementation to affect any changes in it. I will say, the way it's zoned now, the land, I think it's an appropriate zoning for manufacturing, research, and development. That's what's happening out there. And this other zoning for neighborhood high, yes, we do have that in the city, but that's in the 101 corridor. Along Teal Boulevard, Hillcrest, that area. It's near commercial, it's near civic and recreational uses, apartments, townhouses. So that's an appropriate designation for that area, I believe. And it's not like we have no deficit of housing opportunities here in the city of Thousand Oaks. The general plan update identified over 600 acres of developable land for housing along the 101 corridor at both malls, different sites. That's a lot of acreage. And as my fellow council member has mentioned, we're at the beginning stages of implementation yet on that. And I'd like to see some of that come forward. But as I said, our housing element was certified by HCD, Housing and Community Development, acknowledging the fact that we do have land for housing. And we took a lot of effort to make sure that they understood that and that we got our plan certified. So I think for me, I need to keep this the way it is for now, and see how things develop. And if there's no further discussion, we do have a motion on the floor. And the motion is, in fact, to initiate a general plan amendment and a specific plan amendment for this property, brought forth by Mr. McNamee, so I believe we can have a vote on that.
And that motion fails 1-4 with council members Engler and Taylor voting no, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Newman and Mayor Adam.
All right, thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, speakers, for coming down.
We need another motion. We need another motion.
What?
We need another motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
You need if it's not to.
Right, yeah,
You need another
right.
motion.
The opposite.
The opposite.
Mr. Engler,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
please do.
I would go to our staff report and go with recommendation B, which is adopt a resolution to deny the initiation of a general plan amendment, et cetera.
And 3.
And number 3, it's not CEQA.
That does make sense. We have another motion on the floor. Let's vote on that, please.
One moment, please.
And that is to deny the general plan amendment and specific plan amendment being requested this evening.
I'm going to take a voice vote. So Councilmember Engler,
Yes.
Councilmember McNamee,
No.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newman,
Aye.
and Mayor Adam.
Yes.
And that motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember McNamee dissenting.
All right. Again, thank you, staff, for the time you spent on this. Thank you, speakers, for coming down. And we are going to move along here. I believe we have a report on the League of California Cities Counties Division meeting update. Councilmember Taylor, you going to brief us on that?
Okay, so with the busy schedule I have right now, anytime that I'm, I guess, doing anything business or city related, I try to bring my wife along with me if I can. This was the perfect opportunity to. It was held in Atascadero at the zoo, so we did a little zoo tour. They had a dinner set up over the water, and it was beautiful. And the speaker was the zoo director, Cynthia Stringfield. And we got updated on a couple things. One, some ballot measures that are coming up in November. They updated us. They just had completed a financial audit. One highlight, actually, that I had, we stayed on the downtown strip. I believe it was the Parker, is that right, the hotel we were at? It was really cool. One thing that's interesting is going to other cities and seeing how they're building out their downtown and what's ultimately becoming the hub of their city. And Atascadero is doing it in a cool and funky way, but every city seems to be doing that. So it's encouraging to see that what we're attempting to do with our city, which is to create more of a hub and a destination and a reason for people to come in. There's a lot of cities almost going through a rebrand, I guess you could call it. Great experience in Atascadero. My wife enjoyed it, which was a win-win for me. All in all, it was a good event. And then I believe the next event is being held in Long Beach. I don't have the date on that, but I think the next one is a little bit closer.
Would cool and funky be a land use designation?
Well,
Mr.
here
Taylor?
I'll give you an example. They had a retail kind of storefront that kind of, went into like a bar and, kind of hangout area. It was all done with storage containers. So it was, 3 storage containers with like 2 on top and then windows blown out of them. It was really cool looking. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that in Atascadero.
No, I totally appreciate what you're saying. It's amazing what can be done in cities. Santa Barbara comes to mind with the Funk Zone.
Yep.
It was an industrial, blighted area, and it's become the focal point of the city with all kinds of entertainment and fun, and it's just amazing the way things can transform. I'm glad you went.
That's right.
Thanks for the report. We need a motion to receive it. Mr. Engler?
Yes,
You're
receive.
the
please.
motioner tonight.
I'm the motion man, yes.
You're the motion man.
And that motion passes 5-0.
All right, Mr. Powers, final comments?
Thanks, Mayor Adam. We'll be back here on the 10th of September in a couple of weeks. We'll have our annual 9/11 observance with honor guard and a supporting proclamation. We'll also have a public hearing, and that's for our CDBG Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. And this evening, we have 2 very significant folks to adjourn in honor of. The first is Marilyn Carpenter. We are adjourning in memory of Marilyn as a prominent community member. She passed away on June 21st of this year. Marilyn served 2 terms as a Thousand Oaks Planning Commissioner and was first appointed to the commission in 1991. Through her energy and commitment, Marilyn was a champion for maintaining the character of Thousand Oaks. She attended Occidental College. She graduated cum laude with a degree and teaching credential in physical education. She began her teaching career at Irving Junior High School, and she taught alongside fellow Occidental graduate and future Thousand Oaks City Council member and Mayor Ed Jones, with whom she would share many years of community involvement. Marilyn and her husband David relocated to Thousand Oaks in 1963 to begin a 60-year involvement in local community affairs. She participated in the creation of the Thousand Oaks General Plan. She served as Ventura County Planning Commissioner. She was the Thousand Oaks representative to the Southern California Association of Governments. Marilyn was a member of the Thousand Oaks Redevelopment Advisory Committee, and she was a founding member of the Thousand Oaks chapter of AAUW. Professionally, she gained recognition with her tenure as a graduate admissions counselor for the Department of Education and Psychology at California Lutheran University. Of her many successes, Marilyn was proud of her membership in the School Site Council and its efforts to maintain the Barranco's natural state at Westlake High School. She was a champion of preserving and protecting our oak trees. Marilyn's advocacy for community interests left an enduring mark of enrichment in Thousand Oaks, and we mourn her loss, and we celebrate all her lifelong accomplishments. Tonight, we're also adjourning in the memory of an entrepreneur, a talented musician, a passionate arts supporter, and a distinguished community member, Harry Selvin, who passed away August 11th at the age of 97. Harry founded Selvin Properties in 1975, a commercial real estate service managing familiar area locations, including the Promenade Office Park and the North Ranch Atrium. As a businessman with a style for innovation, in 2012, Harry purchased and renovated the Palm Garden Hotel in Newbury Park into a boutique destination, and this year in June, he added to the Palm by opening Selvin's Restaurant and Lounge. One of Harry's unique additions to the hotel was the purchase of a custom-made pool table that belonged to the late comedian and actor George Burns. Harry remarked that the pool table, now located in the hotel's Hollywood suite, had every major star play on it, including Lucille Ball and Bob Hope. Harry's biggest pleasure outside of real estate management was founding and conducting the Harry Selvin Big Band Orchestra, and Harry was a talented musician playing the drums, and his band performed regularly every month at the Palm Garden Ballroom. Harry was dedicated to Thousand Oaks and committed to supporting local arts. He served on the inaugural Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza Board of Governors, often serving as its chairman. He was a member of the Cultural Affairs Commission, an Alliance for the Arts board member, and an advisory board member for Caprio Music Theater and Five Star Theatrical Company. Harry was past president of the Thousand Oaks Rotary Club, and in 2003 was honored by the Chamber of Commerce as their Man of the Year. Harry's remarkable journey through hospitality, music, and entrepreneurship left an enduring mark on the community which he loved. Through his inspiration, generosity, and spirit, Harry enriched the quality of life in Thousand Oaks for us all, and he will be truly missed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will now adjourn to our regular meeting, September 10th, 2024.